There's good growth.
On the day-to-day from Americans, that's why they don't feel it.
By the way, that was not the soundbite.
Yeah, that wasn't.
That's going to come up in a moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
That was in Wisconsin at the brewery, and we do have
that one made somewhat sense.
We have the one that he stumbles
better.
through coming up. But first, to your point, Lawrence, we wanted to show you some headlines because people are hurting right now. This is the New York Post. Most Gen Z and millennials are financially dependent on their parents. Pew report. Then Fox Business says 1/3 of small business owners are worried their company won't survive in 2024.
That's
and
terrifying.
NPR says housing is now unaffordable for a record half of all U.S. renters, the study finds. If you read these articles, Gen Z, it says more than half of 18 to 34-year-olds still rely on mom and dad for some sort of an allowance. Only a fourth can pay all their bills. Then there's another article, the last one that we just mentioned. There's a single mom of 4 lives in Philadelphia. She has to live in a 2-bedroom apartment, so the kids share rooms. She probably shares her room. The rent has gone up. She was paying $1,300 a month. Now she's paying $1,600 a month. And the hours at her work were cut. And she said the neighborhood is not even safe enough for the kids to play outside, but she doesn't have the money to move to a better neighborhood.
I'm just wondering if the story is going to be told about what's going internally with this administration. Now, we know that the macro numbers are great, 3.1 part.
This whole country is just falling apart, man. You know, as I go through these subjects and I determine what it is that I want to talk about on the Millionaire Morning Show, I'm going to read that super chat shortly. This whole country is just falling apart. Story after story. Situation after situation. Housing affordability. You know, it's so easy to profit off of this because I see where the duress is, right? And because when you see where the duress is, I'm going to get into the story shortly. I see where the duress is, right? And when you start to really understand what happens, you really got a couple different choices. Your first choice is, do you want to rail against it, understanding that you're going to be like a small fish in a big pond of people that remain voluntarily ignorant, and then the powers that be laugh at it? Or do you pivot and then you start taking advantage of it, right? So it's easy for me to see that it's an affordability crisis. It's also easy to see where all of these different things are taking place that then put you in a space to where it's going to be an affordability crisis. I've been telling y'all for a long time, and I've been saying, listen, it's going to be the haves and the have-nots. It's going to be the middle class is going away, and it's going to be the have and the have-nots. And it's going to be a whole lot of have-nots, and it's not going to be a whole lot of haves. It's going to be people that think that they have, and they're not really going to have because they really don't understand how it works. And then they eventually going to be considered middle class, and then it's going to be have-nots. I said, listen, $100,000 is going to be considered, it's not even going to be considered a lot of money. It's not even going to be middle class. I've been saying this stuff for a long time, bro. A long time. And ultimately, I want you guys to benefit from it because you're going to have to pick a side, bro. Honestly, you're just going to have to pick a side. You're going to have to pick whether or not you want to be poor or you want to be rich. You got to pick a side. You genuinely got to pick a side.
California's housing crisis hitting renters hard. A new report shows many people are spending half of their income on rent. Thanks for staying with us at 5:30. I'm Hunter Sowers.
And I'm Curtis Ming. CBS 13's Kayla Moeller is getting answers on how a shortage of homes is really driving up prices. Kayla?
We all know the 30% of your paycheck rule. It's the sweet spot to spend on rent. But nowadays, that number is much higher for many people, myself included.
My rent is extraordinarily high for what I live in.
This renter moved back to Sacramento last year after being gone for 7 years. She says after shopping around for a place to live, she's seen a dramatic increase in the cost of living in the area.
I'm definitely paying more than 30% now. It's unaffordable. Yeah.
It's a story we keep hearing.
It's much more difficult than it used to be, where you have a job at a grocery store and that makes everything work, and that's just not the environment we have right now.
Local appraiser and housing analyst Ryan Lundquist says not enough homes are being built.
We need both apartments and single family homes to be built to help alleviate pressure on rent and pressure on home prices.
The good
Prices. Let me give y'all some. I got some good news and some bad news for you. The good news is that they're gonna continue to build housing. The bad news is that the prices is not gonna go down. They're only gonna continue to go up. I have a phenomenal relationship with.
A lot of people have similar feelings there, but Ryan Lundquist did make a point to assure me that the housing market is a cycle, right? So what goes up must come down.
But when you own it outright, you're not worried about what comes down. And it is cyclical, but it's not going to come down the way that you think it's going to come down. It's going to come down based off of the fact that you're under duress and you can't afford it, which then puts people in a position to have to drive the prices a little bit further down or move over into a place where they can't afford it, and then they start to shack up with each other. It's silly. It's the dumbest thing ever.
We talk about housing. Financial experts often advise you that you should spend no more than 1/3 of your pay on housing. But
have you seen that they continue to program with y'all, programming to y'all the same thing? And then you know what'll happen? The same thing that happens when women say, who hurt you? You gonna go and regurgitate it to somebody else, and you're gonna say, listen, you are only supposed to spend 1/3 of your income, 33.3% of your income on housing. Lord, forgive them. They know not what they do.
that doesn't really fly around here. New data reveals renters in the East Bay are having the toughest time with this. Let's bring in our investigative reporter, Hilda Gutierrez, who joins us with these details. Hilda.
Yes, the government defines affordable housing as the costing no more than 30% of your income, but residents...
The government, you are basing your narratives and your talking points based off of what the government determined what affordable housing is. Did you realize that?
In the East Bay, where rent was once considered affordable, tell us they surpassed that percentage a long time ago. And the latest census data agrees.
Like when I say rent prices to you, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
A significant part of a paycheck.
It's too much. Really too much. Ridiculous.
Lakeisha Jones and her 3 children moved from San Francisco to Pittsburgh 13 years ago because living in the city was no longer affordable. At the time, she says prices in Pittsburgh seemed fair, but not anymore.
People are, scrambling, trying to figure out how to pay bills and how to...
It's going to happen everywhere. Y'all keep thinking that it's only going to happen in Miami and New York and San Francisco and all of the different parts of California. Nope, it's coming to your small town. You think you escaped it. You didn't. You didn't. Because as they push people out, it's just, look, you know what's happening in Florida right now? The people that were living in southern Florida, they're being pushed up. And so now the people that's in Orlando, they're going up to, Jacksonville? Jacksonville people are going up to Atlanta. Atlanta people is going up to Tennessee. Tennessee people is going up to Ohio. Ohio people is going up to Chicago and Gary, Indiana. And so they basically just pushing people out. Now they over in Pittsburgh. People in New York and San Francisco, they moved over to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is a phenomenal city. It's one of my favorite cities. They're pushing you up and away from the places that you're used to being. And so now everybody is scrambling just for survival. It's all a trickle down effect. It's coming to your city. It's coming to your city. I'm telling you, it's coming to your city. You can't outrun it. It's the same thing as trying to get rich. You can't save your way to success and wealth. It's coming to your city.
Keep the lights on. Do I pay my car insurance or do I buy food? It's almost kind of one of those type of things. And do you keep a roof over your head?
New census estimates for 2022 show nearly 3/4, 73% of renters in Pittsburgh were burdened by housing costs, meaning they spend more than 30% of their income on rent. Pittsburgh tops cities across the Bay and sits 4th overall nationwide.
They're so high that I decided not to move here. How's that?
Arthur Rainey says when he was apartment hunting in Walnut Creek last November, he became so discouraged by the high rent, he decided to move out of state instead.
I said, never mind, I won't do that. I decided I'd just live in Omaha, Nebraska and do my work out here.
And how much are you paying out there for something similar?
Oh, actually, it's not even comparable. So I have a 2-bedroom penthouse condo out there for $2,200 a month, 1,500 square feet.
When we looked at the cities with the highest rent burden in all of the Bay Area, 3 of the top ones were here in Contra Costa County. Pittsburgh and Walnut Creek both saw double-digit increases in burden renters compared to pre-pandemic estimates. Antioch is the only city in the top 5 where the number actually
I get it. They talking about that Pittsburgh. I like the other Pittsburgh.
went down after the pandemic, but still enough burden renters to make the top 5. At the county level, Solano and Contra Costa had the highest percentage of burden renters in the Bay Area. Only San Francisco had fewer than 40% of renters facing burdening costs. They recommend to only spend 30% of your income on your housing.
Let me laugh. Yeah, no, it's more than that.
Bertha purchased a home and moved to Pittsburgh 18 years ago. At that time, her mortgage was $1,000 a month. She now pays double after negotiating with her bank. She says a home like hers rents for at least $2,500 a month.
The bank tried to make us pay, like almost triple.
How did the bank make you almost pay triple? If you got a 30-year mortgage, and it's not an ARM, it's not an adjustable rate mortgage or anything like that, but you have a fixed